Hi guys, this is Ritu from thelifester.com and I'm back today with a Lifester expert interview with the amazingly talented Alison Monday, who's the founder of Tiny Blue Orange. Just a little bit of background. The Lifester, first of all, is all about getting through life's awkward moments gracefully, and that's what I write about in my blog on the website. And if you've been there, you'll know that I love branding, I love websites. I'm a huge nerd for usability and flow, and that's why when I somehow stumbled upon Tiny Blue Orange, I was like, this is exactly what I'm about, and I absolutely fell in love with it. And Alison, you're the founder of Tiny Blue Orange,
hmm
so can you tell us a little bit about what it is that you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you so much for letting me be a part of this. Kind of like you said, I love nerding out about this stuff and chatting about it. So this is perfect. Yeah, basically, I love helping small business owners, and usually what that means is individuals. I work with a lot of solopreneurs like myself. Um, we all talk about this work-life balance, which really doesn't exist. This bleeds into everything that I do, personally and professionally. So I just love kind of living this dream of mine of being a business owner and helping others kind of work through it. So I think we have a lot in common in that way.
Yeah, and I see that on your blog. I mean, the posts that you write about are, I don't know, they're kind of comforting in a way.
Oh,
Of like,
thanks. Yeah.
yeah, you share loads of useful tips and helpful advice, but in the end, it's kind of like, oh, okay, somebody else is also facing challenges. It makes you feel kind of off the hook a little bit.
Absolutely.
Okay, so, well, first of all, I think that Tiny Blue Orange creates magical websites.
Thanks. Yeah,
Um,
that's kind of the end goal, right? I love working with people and kind of that customer service piece. But yeah, the end product are secure and beautiful websites for businesses that operate online. So
mhm.
absolutely.
And yeah, and the reason why I feel I don't know, it works what you do is because you're very, very aware of brand personality. And I think that's why when I stumbled upon your website, I was like, this website has personality. What? That's cool.
Yeah.
So, I want to ask you, what made you start this company and when did you start it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, growing up, my dad has always been an entrepreneur. He's an architect. So, my entire life, probably before I was an idea, he has been running a business. So, I've always had that connection to being an entrepreneur, and seeing him kind of control his schedule and get to do what he's super passionate about. Um, you know, it really inspired me. And kind of like how I said, there's this rumor of work-life balance. We would be at a restaurant and he'd be drawing plans on napkins because an idea struck him, and I was just like, that is the coolest thing to me. So I kind of always had this drive. I've always been the girl running lemonade stands, or selling bracelets to friends, that kind of thing. And so, when I went to college, got my degree in graphic design, fell in love, and then kind of jumped into this web world because it's really where things were progressing, and found that I loved coding, which is not super common for designers. A lot of designers love design, hate code, and that's not to say that there aren't people like me out there. But kind of all of my designer friends were like, oh, I hate coding. And I was like, oh my gosh, I love coding. Like, let me help you. So I was doing a little bit on the side, kind of moonlighting here and there, and started realizing like, oh, this might actually be the ticket. Like, this might be how I become an entrepreneur. And so in 2007, I bought the domain Tiny Blue Orange, and then just kind of progressed from there, built up my client base, had a day job, started filtering my hours down. Thankfully, I had the nicest boss who let me go from 40 hours a week to 36 to 32, like really let me like taper down as I got busier and busier. And then finally reached that point where I was like, you know what, I can't keep doing both. and made the jump to full-time. And so that's been almost 3 years ago now that I've been doing Tiny Blue Orange exclusively. And prior to that, it was about a year of working 20 hours a week at the day job, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the rest of the time was Tiny Blue Orange. So yeah, it's been a cool ride, and it's kind of hard to believe when I say things like that, like, oh, it's been 3 years already. Like, it feels like almost just yesterday that I was panicking about, being responsible for my income and how I was going to get through all of that. So it's been kind of fun.
Wow, that sounds cool. I'm glad that you do it. I mean, I'm glad you pulled it off because it gives inspiration to people like us who are still kind of trying to figure it out.
Hmm.
And I love what you said. I mean, I love the example that you showed about you yourself doing it slowly and gradually. And it did take, from 2007 till 3 years ago, it was a long period of transition.
Absolutely. And
And
it
yeah.
was sorry, it was tough too, like figuring out what I wanted to do. When I first launched my business cards, I'll never forget this. They said web design and photography. And I used to offer photography to clients because I loved it. It was a hobby of mine. And after about two clients wanting me to do the photography for them, I said, I do not want to do this for clients. Like, this is not, it's very different than taking my camera out and running around with it and having fun versus doing, like headshots and stuff like that. And I'll still do it. Some people, are desperate and can't find anybody to help. But typically I recommend somebody else, because if that's their passion and they love doing that for clients, why wouldn't you want to work with them versus me, who's like, it's a hobby. But when I work with clients, I get a little like, oh, this isn't as fun. So some of that time frame was, kind of like you said, working through the awkward moments and figuring out what drove me and what kind of drove me crazy. And that way I can kind of focus on the things that light me up and keep me going.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's a good example you showed about the photography. I mean, I love doing photography, but the same if I had to if I
Yeah.
had to direct somebody to, pose a certain way, and then there was a pressure on, oh, by the end of this there has to be like really, really polished photos. Oh my gosh. Yeah,
Yeah.
it would kind of take away a bit of my love for photography.
Exactly.
Okay, so my burning question really is do you ever doubt yourself? Because from your work and from your writing and it just doesn't feel like there's a very confident, there's a very sureness to the work that you do. So do you ever doubt yourself?
Absolutely. But I mean, thank you for saying that. That's a huge compliment. One of the biggest things that I've noticed in being an entrepreneur that operates online, and one of the things I really underestimated, was the isolation. So I don't know if you can relate to this. Is, we work behind our screens. We don't have coworkers. We don't have, this human interaction. And even though you and I are talking on video and looking at each other's faces, it's still very different than an in-person interaction. And so when I made this jump, I thought, oh, money is going to be this big stressor, or, process is going to be a huge stressor. And it was like, no, actually, that human contact is going to be tough. And so I think that's where a lot of my self-doubt stemmed from, is because I didn't have that sounding board of coworkers, or that space to kind of bounce ideas off of and really connect with people and realize, okay, yeah, I'm on the right track. So it took me a good chunk of time to kind of settle into a groove and figure out how to kind of overcome those hurdles. And so one of the biggest things for me was finding my people, not just my clients, but finding Facebook groups, or, connecting with people on Twitter, and, kind of having those people that I could reach out to in those moments of like, what am I doing? Like, am I crazy? Please, can I just bounce this idea off of you? So that's been huge, just having somebody to talk to. And, with programs like Slack and Skype, like, you can connect with people in a heartbeat, and just bounce ideas back and forth, which is great. But then the other thing that's really helped, and this is a little woo-woo, I tend to be just a touch kind of hippy-dippy woo-woo. But one of my clients is the tarot lady, and so she does tarot readings, and she talks so much about listening to your gut. And so for me, like, finding that gut, that intuition, that One of my favorite sayings is, if you flip a coin, you already know the answer, because, you're saying like heads this, tails that, but secretly in your head, you're always like, oh, I hope it's tails, or I hope it's heads. Like, you already know the answer. So finding that gut or that intuition or that, that answer that lives within you, that has helped a ton with self-doubt. And that doesn't mean that I've solved the problem of self-doubt, but just kind of having those tools and recognizing when I'm getting into that pattern of like, okay, is this self-doubt talking? Is this fear talking? Or is this like legitimately, am I about to make a bad decision for my business or for myself? And just being able to listen to it, but also recognizing that we're human and that mistakes are going to happen. And sometimes you just have to get your hands dirty and give it a shot and see what happens. That's not to say it's easy. Sometimes I'm like, oh shit, what am I doing? But yeah, it's been really cool. And I think once I found those tools and once I found what worked for me and what really resonated, that self-doubt and that kind of that inner critic got much quieter. And she's still there. But being able to reach out to my friends and say, I'm just having a day. Like, can we just talk about this? Or, see, I have a lot of things for self-doubt. I just thought of this too. I have a folder that I call stickers. Because growing up, as kids, we always loved getting stickers, right? So like your teacher would give you a sticker for doing something right. So anytime somebody tweets something amazing, in terms of a compliment to me, or if I get an email from a client that's just like super awesome, I'll put it in that stickers folder. And so that way, if I'm having a moment of like, that's almost like a fraud feeling, right? Like, what am I doing? I shouldn't be doing this. I'll pull those up and be like, you know what? Yeah, there are people in this world that appreciate what I'm doing, and I am on the right track. So, it's just, like I said, it's about finding what works for you and what kind of reignites that spark, if it's feeling a little dull, or if it's just getting to voice what you're feeling. Because sometimes that's all it is, right? Just letting it out. And then you're like, oh, yeah, that sounds kind of crazy. Like, oh, I'm so terrible at this. Okay, yeah, you know what? No, I'm not. I'm just having a day. So those are kind of like my core pieces for getting over that self-doubt and moving on from it. Let it shine if it needs to for 2 minutes and then move on.
Cool.
Absolutely.
So do you find that after having a moment of connection with your stickers folder or with your Facebook group or somebody on Twitter, do you find it easy to dive back into your work, or is there a bit of like a to start again?
Sometimes there's a little hiccup, yeah, and I think too, like, that's the danger of like Facebook groups, right? It's not even just like that motivation, but it's that distraction of like, okay, I feel better. Oh wait, someone posted a fun video. So it's some of that where you have to kind of like, set a timer for yourself. I listened to the Being Boss podcast, and I think it was that one that they talked about literally setting a timer. Like, you get to feel crappy for 10 minutes, and then you have, like, that timer goes off and you have to move on. And I really liked that. But sometimes, sometimes there's a little hiccup, but even like my internet bestie, Morgan of A Little Creative, whenever we end our phone calls, I feel jazzed. Like, I'm like, oh, yes, like inspiration is like coming out of both ears and I can't wait to do this. So finding those people or finding those connections that help you feel jazzed and kind of light you up and light that fire under you to get going again. And yeah, and this is one thing that I've been working on a lot lately, honestly, is if I'm having a day, just have a day. I don't want to say like, oh, I'm going to stop working for 2 weeks and watch Netflix until I feel better. But if I'm literally having a day where it feels like I'm walking through quicksand and nothing is going right, like, it's okay to pop on an episode of Scandal and like just veg and then get back into it. Because that's, like I said, we're human, right? But yeah, it is important because, like I said, if you do that for 2 weeks, kicking back up is going to be so much harder. So, whether it's kind of the flip of setting a timer for 10 minutes and being like, I just have to work for 10 minutes and then I can go back to watching TV. Odds are, once you start for 10 minutes, you'll be like, okay, cool, I've got my groove back. And then you'll go and kind of rock the day out or rock your to-do list out. So yeah, it goes back to that gut of like recognizing, you know what, I need a break, I need a timeout, or hold up, I'm really procrastinating here, or I'm really kind of making excuses for myself, and kind of seeing that within you, and recognizing what those triggers are for you. That's been huge for me.
Cool. Thank you. The one thing that I'll definitely remember from this conversation is having a sticker folder
Yes.
and having a timer for good and for bad. And
Mm-hmm.
like for example, I'm a huge meditator. I teach meditation,
Yeah.
and I meditate every day. But some days I don't want to. But I just tell myself, okay, just so the kind of meditation I do is called Atma Kriya, and in it there's the one main kriya that you do, and you have to do 5 rounds of it. I just tell myself, okay, I'm just going to do 1 round today, and
Exactly.
that's it. And then the moment I start, I'm gone, and I don't want to
Yep.
stop. So yeah, that's so helpful. Okay.
Yeah, and even if it's not a timer, if it's like, if you have a meditation pillow, like I have a meditation bench. And so if I'm like, oh, like I don't have time to meditate today. Like this is just awful. You know, I'll say to myself, okay, Alison, just sit on the bench. Like literally just sit. Like give yourself those 10 seconds to sit on that bench. And then by the time I sit down, I'm like, the world isn't ending. I'm okay if I take 2 minutes. So yeah, it's one of those where like be kind to yourself and say, you know what, maybe I can only do 2 minutes when I normally do 20. Okay, fine. But that's something. Or even like writing, right? Like if we have to sit down and write, you see a blank page and it's just like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to finish this. Write a sentence or write an outline. And when you do that, it feels so much less daunting because you have something on that paper, or you're sitting in your meditation spot, or, you've done your ritual. So absolutely. I completely agree with that.
That actually brings me to my next question.
Oh, yay.
Who taught you to write the way you do? Because I love the way you write.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, writing has been like a huge part. Like I was totally that dramatic teenager that wrote poetry and kind of let my feelings out that way. So really grateful to my teachers who kind of allowed me to be that expressive. But to be completely honest, the biggest factor I would say in my business writing has been my copywriter. And so to keep a long story super short, one day I got an email from this woman, and she was basically pitching. She was cold calling me, and she said, I love your site. I think you could have some better copy. Here's some of the things that I could do for you. I was like, oh my gosh, like I hadn't thought of a copywriter, and this woman emailed me and sent me like 5 sentences, and I'm thinking of a copywriter. Like that's pretty good sales in my opinion. So it's like, all right, like if she can do that with one email, like I'm really curious to see what she can do. And so this was a long time ago. We've worked together on a couple of things, but this has been a number of years now. I think, yeah, it was about when I was ready to go full time, because I was like, all right, I have to get serious about this. Um, and so I hired her to just write a couple pages. And the writing that she came back with, it was like permission for me, right? Like it gave me permission to be who I was, and to I hid behind the we language, and now Tiny Blue Orange is a team, so it is a we. But when it was literally just Alison Monday, I would say, we at Tiny Blue Orange do this. And it was like, I felt like I needed to kind of puff up, and I needed to be bigger than what I was. And I needed to not swear and not show, that's not what businesses do. And after working with this copywriter, it was like, no, if that's who you are, then embrace that and be that, because that's what's going to set you apart. And so after hiring her to write just a couple pages of copy, I was like, yes. So then I rewrote all of my copy on the other pages, kind of with that fire lit under me, and have carried it through on all my blog posts. Like I said, I just hired her for a couple pages, and since those things have changed, but it just really kind of helped me see that it was okay to get my footing and speak my brand voice, because my brand voice was there in photos and in color and in design, but I was just so afraid to have too much personality, and I've since learned that that's not that's not something to worry about.
No, no, not at all. I mean, as I said, the one thing why I was hooked on your site, I got to it and I was like, this website has personality. I mean, this my
Yeah.
computer suddenly has personality because I'm looking at this website. So
Oh,
yeah, I
thanks.
absolutely appreciate that. And okay, so copywriters are good. Copywriters are somebody you
Yes.
can learn a lot from, and it's
And
totally okay to hire people to write copy for you.
absolutely. And even if it, I think that relates to so much, right? Because like I'm a designer developer, and so I tell people like, okay, if you can't afford a custom website from start to finish, hire a designer to get a brand style guide together for you. So maybe it's a matter of helping pick out colors and fonts, and that's all you can afford at the moment. But that's a kickstart, and that's going to help direct you to be able to pick out colors and be able to pick out elements on your site. And so the same thing, like if copywriting, if writing isn't your jam or you're feeling unsure of yourself, maybe you hire a copywriter, or maybe you hire or sign up for a course on writing copy. Because I know, like the Middle Finger Project, I took one of their copywriting courses. And it helped me feel a little bit better about the salesy side of writing. So yeah, it's just a matter of if you know your weaknesses, but you want to be better at them, like find a way to get that little boost or that little bit of information that helps you. So absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, and you said you hired somebody and you didn't need to continue hiring them forever. It just gave you that permission and that was your ticket and you just ran with that.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, and I use her still. I choose to use her when I write ebooks
Hmm.
as an editor, or to kind of make sure things are good. But like I said, it doesn't have to be that way. It can just be like inspiration that you take from, or you use that as the core, and then you can kind of dissect it and figure out. Or even the work that we did together before she even wrote copy. The questionnaires that she gave me, it was like, okay, cool. Like I see where she's kind of going with this, and I have those answers all filled out of like what I want Tiny Blue Orange to be and who I want to speak to, and those things. So you might find some mega inspiration from just that pre-work even.
Hmm.
So yeah, it can be a great investment, and just in your sanity, or your like you said, your confidence, or what it comes across for you. So absolutely.
Awesome. Okay, now my final question. So if you were me and you had a website, you found, you stumbled upon something online and you absolutely loved it, and you got a chance to interview the creator of that website, who would you pick to interview?
Oh my goodness, that is such a good question, because I get inspiration from so many people. Um, well, this isn't really like website related. To be like perfectly honest, one of the people that I'm like so inspired by right now is Beyonce. Like total nerd moment, but like I listened to her new album, and it gives me that like confidence. I'm like, yeah, girl power. Like this is the shit. Um, but I think in terms of like more businessy kind of stuff. I'd really be interested to interview Danielle Laporte, because I think she really speaks from a place of like it's true to her, and she really is honest about kind of this is me, this is what I want in life, and I really dig that about her. The other person, this is a little bit more on the food side but still creative, Laura Miller. She does raw vegan, not gross. But her Instagram account is insane. Like it's just so fun. Speaking of personality, like she really nails it in those Instagram posts and videos. So I would love to interview her and see kind of what inspires her, and where she gets some of these great ideas from.
Cool. Well, Alison, thank you so much. How can people find you and connect with you
Yeah,
online?
absolutely. So yeah, if you want to check out the personality site, it's tinyblueorange.com. Um, and I just want to give some little tips too, because I think, you kept talking about personality, and I want people to feel comfortable. Like I said, I struggled with it for so long. So little details, like I'm sure you noticed, even my opt-in buttons, so many buttons say sign up or go, or, it's not really that exciting. My opt-in buttons say jazz hands and boom and heck yes and stuff like that. So just throwing, and it doesn't, if that's not your personality to say jazz hands, don't put that. But if it's your personality to put 3 exclamation marks, then add that. Or if it's your personality to use hashtags all the time, then put that in there. So just, think about those little details and those ways that you can kind of add it, your email signature, stuff like that. So anyway, so tinyblueorange.com is my website, and I'm having a great time on Instagram and Twitter, and it's my handle on both is at tinyblueorange. So I try to keep it really easy for people to remember me, especially like, the hair and the
I
clothes. Like
noticed.
my brand is everywhere.
Yeah, that's really cool. Alison,
Thanks.
thank you so much. I'm
No, thank
so
you.
grateful you came on here and shared your stuff with us. And I'm so happy to hear that you meditate, because
Yeah.
meditation, honestly, I mean, I personally love it. I teach it. But if I didn't have it in my life, I'd be a crazy girl. I would probably be, I don't know, like a mom of 2 kids by now, like the worst. Not that
No,
that's a bad thing, but
totally.
things that just wouldn't probably be me. So I'm so happy to hear that
Exactly.
you also meditate.
No, it's a game changer. That when you reached out to me, I was like, yes, like I love what you're about, because it's like, when I found out meditation, like even just sitting still and just existing, like I was like, oh, I get it now. So yeah, that's been a game changer.
Yeah, it's so simple. And I feel like somebody that's willing to sit for 2 seconds and, I don't know, just sit there and witness, or whatever is your practice,
Yep.
it brings them a certain level of, I don't know, I mean, I connect to those people better, and I think that's why our conversation today, I mean, I feel pretty good about it. It was easy, it was fun, but
Yeah,
but yeah, so I'm so happy to hear that you meditate, and
absolutely.
thank you again for doing this.
Yeah,
And
no, thank you.
anyone who's watching, if you have any questions for us, put it in a comment, and I'll bring it to Alison's attention. If it's
Yeah,
for her,
absolutely.
I'm sure you'll answer it. Um, and if you enjoyed this, please subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks again, Alison.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.